Greetings, everybody. Yet another ugly week in late June 2025. So, this week, and probably the next one too, is going to be dominated by this abomination of a budget bill that has been sitting in Congress for the past couple of months, festering away. And the reason why is because they're trying to get it passed by July 4th. That's the goal. They want it passed by July 4th. Because if they don't, they know that they're going to get a bunch of mean tweets from the baby that is in charge. And so we're just going to have to hear about this over and over and over again. So most of this week we've been getting a lot of good news about this bill. So the two of the most dangerous provisions, AI by right, which would have been very dangerous for the environment. We do not have the technology right now to run these models efficiently, as well as a bond requirement that limits the ability of courts to hold people in contempt under the color of the law. People who are in the executive branch, that's what that means. Both of those provisions have been removed. They were some of the most dangerous provisions in this bill, even though they weren't directly budgetary. And they weren't the bulk of what it was going to try to do. They were struck out of the bill as not being budget related. And they were, each of them, frankly, in the long term was probably as dangerous as these cuts that I'm going to be talking about. The other thing, something else was cut out of it too. There were a bunch of them as well. Regulation cuts to cafe standards, the fuel standards, as well, were also cut. But the main thing that was cut, in addition to those dangerous provisions, was a ban that Republicans had. It was a form of Medicaid cut that about 1/8 of the total cuts consisted of this. It was a form of cut that basically barred states from using taxes on the providers, on people like pharma companies that operated in their operations in a state. The states charged them taxes that helped fund the programs on the state level, because there's a state and federal component to Medicaid programs. They were going to try to limit that, and most of those limits, at least for the first 4 years, have been struck out. They have been struck out of this bill. A few of them, I don't know why any of them made it through, because none of them affect the federal budget. A few of them, starting in 4 years from now, did make it through, at least according to what I've read so far. I don't understand what that is. But yeah, so the bill has been neutered in a lot of ways, but it's still incredibly dangerous when it comes to healthcare, and I've talked about how important that is. Not just on a human level, but on a practical level. How important that is to our cause. People who are not well, people who are sicker and who are more afraid, tend to vote Republican. And at least for a lot of these illnesses. And so It is very dangerous to our cause. This is something that Timothy Snyder spoke about ad nauseum in his videos and podcasts and articles that he's written about the concept of stato-populism. I believe that it's also in his book, Road to Unfreedom. It's a familiar concept to a lot of us, but read about it if you haven't heard of it before. It will help you make sense of this. So, this is not something that any of us wanted to deal with right now, needless to say. Shame on all of the creators, by the way, that had told us that the Medicaid cuts were somehow gone because of this parliamentarian. Yes, she was able to neuter a lot of this bill, and she was able to get rid of some of those cuts, but only in the short term, and only about an eighth of them, the ones that are on the state level, the compulsory cuts. None of the main cuts that are happening to this program, like the work requirement, which is something that really just exists for the purpose of creating as much red tape as possible. None of this stuff is going to work out well. None of this stuff has been actually removed from the bill. It's just... And yet, so many creators have said that it will. Shame on them. Shame on them. I'm just so angry about that. But, anyway, so they are trying to ram this through. It's utterly unfinished. Last time, it didn't even go to a vote because not enough... yesterday night, last time they tried, it was not able to go to the floor because there just was not enough support for it among the Republicans. Obviously, there's zero Democratic support. I wish that it needed Democratic support, but it doesn't. But almost all of the Republicans didn't vote this way. And not almost all of them, just a critical mass of them. Sorry. So this is an obviously unfinished bill. I don't even know how much of it has been even amended in order to comply with the parliamentarians' rules. And yet they're still trying to ram it through because of this deadline of July 4th that they want to stick to, because they don't want to humiliate. They don't want to humiliate Trump and make him look weak. And so we will have to, and that is something that would be good for us to do. That would be important for us to make them look weak. So we have to be, anybody that has Republican senators has to be calling them, emailing them, making sure that they are as unlikely to vote for this as possible. Unfortunately, these are anonymous votes, and so we don't know who is holding this up, sadly. These are anonymous processes that are going on. The anonymous negotiations. We are not privy to them. We don't know who is holding this up. I wish that we could lavish them with praise. They're trying to get this through in order to make it so that they're not as quickly as they can, in order render them unable to think critically about it. And so really it's all about us at this point. We don't know who to praise, so just put pressure on the Republicans, because that's all that we can do right now with the information that we have. And it's valuable anyway, regardless, even if they were somebody that would be willing to vote for it, to make sure that they know how unpopular it is. So, if this passes, what happens if this passes? This is, I said that some of the most dangerous parts have been removed. But the cuts in and of themselves are dangerous. They're pseudo-populist. They will only make us less healthy. They will only make us vote for less sane people. Why and drain us of our capacity to be productive. So, why would... what would this do to us? What would this do to us? I'm sorry I'm getting my 5 W's mixed up. I don't know what the F is wrong with me today. But, anyway. So, what happens if this passes? Is this the end? No, it's not. And just by virtue of the fact that it didn't get rid of the ability for courts to do contempt, which is a power that they generally are afraid to use anyway, because they don't want to bring it to a head. But this is certainly not... Our fight is not over if they do indeed pass this. Indeed, we might get our health care back. Like, this bill might be gone within a couple of years before any of the nastiest parts of it even go into effect. So, that would include things like the caps on state taxes that they use to fund their Medicaid portion. That would also include a cap. That would also include the work requirements themselves, which again are designed to create paperwork and get people kicked off of the program. And those are also due again in 4 years. I don't think I told you that, but those are a 3 or 4 year delay on that, put in place by the Senate Republicans. They voluntarily chose this. This wasn't the parliamentarian. But some of those worst cuts, we might be able to have this bill gone by that time. And why would we be able to do that? It's not because of... This is a 10-year budget bill, supposedly. But the amount of borrowing that it creates leaves us very open to a fiscal crisis. And a fiscal crisis would make it so that they are far more likely, especially if we're able to get Trump out of power, especially if we're able to have a general strike, it would make them much more willing to renegotiate on this deal if there is a fiscal crisis. And we've already seen rumblings of one when the tariffs came. People were not willing to buy our debt. That could happen again. This bill is so egregious on the debt, especially now that they have taken a lot of the cuts and pushed them further off in order to try to save the midterms. If they do this, it will really, if they do this and they have enormous cuts, enormous hikes to the deficit, what that will do, first of all, that will cut Medicare and other programs because of anti-deficiency slash balanced budget laws. They will raise the deficit more than they're even allowed to. And second of all, what that will do is it will make it more likely that a fiscal crisis will happen. And if that happens, if an actual fiscal crisis takes place, it will force Congress back to the negotiating table. And so those are the things that we should focus on and build towards, as well as obviously getting Trump out of power, but specifically when it comes to healthcare and when it comes to renegotiating this deal. If it gets passed, we have to be like a hawk. We have to be on the deficit. That's the angle that we have to push. So it is not over if this goes through, but it definitely closes a lot of our possibility space. And it would be a lot better if we could get this bill to fail, obviously. So that is what's going on this week. It's kind of ugly. I wanted this to be a week of good news, but it's getting close to the supposed deadline. And if they're going to push it through at all, it will probably be through on July 4th. This is the TLDR section. The Senate parliamentarian was able to neuter a lot of the dangerous non-budget stuff. She wasn't able to do very much about the Medicaid cuts. A lot of them have been pushed back, frankly, in an attempt to win elections and to not have people see what's going on. And this will lead to a fiscal crisis, most likely. And it will also, by way of leading to a fiscal crisis, it will endanger Medicare as well. And it's also a deeply unfinished bill that is not ready, and they're trying to push it through. And a lot of Republicans are not willing to vote for it. So definitely a good time to do our calls and emails. That is basically what this week was all about. It's all about budget-related stuff. There were a couple of signs of daylight showing on the Republican support for the war. There are signs of daylight as well. I have not read deeply into them because I've mainly been occupied with the budget-related stuff. But there have been signs of daylight. There have been signs of the beginnings of a bipartisan consensus against this kind of war, which is good news, that even these people that are shamelessly terrified of a mean tweet and things like that are willing to do that. So make your calls. It's definitely stand by for the next protests that are going to be coming up, and get involved, because we have to get him out of power, and we have to get this back to the negotiating table, or preferably stop it in the first place. And God bless you all. I hope you're successful, and I hope you're safe if you can be. It's a moment of sacrifice, but I want the best for you all. Take care. Bye.